Hello, everyone, and welcome to our today's session. We are very happy to have you today here with us. Thank you so much for saying hello to us. Thank you so much for saying from where you are. It's going to be great to hear from where are you guys and where are you located currently. That's very helpful. So my name is Alina. I'm an EducationUSA advisor, and today we are here with another interesting session, as we usually do organize them monthly. And here you have a QR code on the screen that will help you to navigate on our website. We are providing monthly webinars on useful topics for graduate and undergraduate students. We are having their articles, MOOCs that can help you during your research process. And we also have our EducationUSA advisors. On our website, you can find the nearest EducationUSA center you have nearby your region or location. Okay, so let's start. As you guys know, we have monthly webinars with students that either were EducationUSA students, where they are here with us to share their experience of how they are studying in the US. And today we have with us Nica Gojan, and she's actually, I will just be proud to say that she's from Moldova, and she's studying currently at Tufts University. We have invited her to share her success story, because we consider this is a very successful story. Even though we are a small country, we have very talented students, as for sure, from every country that we have in our region. So yes, I will just give her the floor. She can just say a few words about herself, and then we'll move to the Q&A session. Guys, be active, address your question. We have a bunch of them. We'll try to make it interactive. So yes, please be active. Hi, Nica, once again, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Lina. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this session. And again, hello to everyone who has joined the live. My name is Nica Gojan. I'm a student at Tufts University. I'm currently in my second year pursuing a bachelor's degree. Tufts University is located in Boston in the state of Massachusetts. And I'm originally, again, as previously mentioned, from Moldova. I did my high school here. I went to primary, kindergarten, everything was here. Born and raised in Moldova, as I like to say. And yeah.
And yes, today you're going to share your success story, as I already said. So, okay, let's move to the most interesting part. We want to know your experience. We want to know the details, and we'll go to all the questions that we have prepared in advance. Some of them have been addressed by the people who have registered before this event, so we'll also answer them. And if you guys have questions during this live, please submit them in the chat box. You have that available. So yes. Be enthusiastic and interested about Nica's experience. Okay, so one of the first question, a question that we would give normally to all the students that would participate in our webinars is, what inspired you to study in the United States, and how did you start your research about US universities?
Thank you. This is one of my favorite questions, because again, there is a very specific reason as to why I chose the United States, and that is liberal arts colleges, and specifically the liberal arts curriculum. This generally refers to a curriculum that allows students to navigate their career options, their passions, their interests in usually their first years of college before deciding on a major. So for example, when you apply to colleges in the US, you can apply stating that you don't know what you want to study as undecided, for example, and then figure it out once you get there. Or you can also state that you might want to study international relations or other majors, and then switch your major once you get there. So I think the flexibility that comes with the liberal arts curriculum is really the thing that I was like, yes, I need this, especially because I think I was in 10th grade when I found out about liberal arts colleges, and I was so unsure as to what I wanted to do. And my biggest fear was, oh, what if I end up studying something that I hate? So I tried to do everything in my power to avoid that. And so when it comes to research, I think once I found out that this curriculum is specifically designed by liberal arts colleges, that's where I kind of started my research. I started looking into different small private liberal arts colleges, finding out more about the flexibility of their curriculum, but also the way that they structure their classes, their semesters, their extracurriculars, and so on.
Awesome. Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you so much. So then we'll move to the next one, which comes after the first question. How did you build up your college list? I think that's one of things that our students would struggle with, because depending on their needs, they would have to structure a college list depending on their financial status, depending on the location, or I don't know, or the region where they want to go. And what were the most important factors specifically for you when you were choosing to what universities you want to apply?
Yeah, this is a very good question because your college list can sometimes make or break your college decisions, especially because there's different ways that you can build a college list. And I think one of the mistakes that most people do is like putting all of the Ivies on there, or just, basically building up a college list that's only made up of schools with really, really small acceptance rates. And so I think for me, one of the guiding principles that I used when building up my college list was, of course, the liberal arts curriculum. This is what I wanted and needed the most. And then the second one was specifically their financial aid policies. So because I'm a low income student, there was no way I could afford to pay full tuition, going to a college in the US. And so the financial aid aspect of things was really the thing that would make or break my decisions and my applications and so on. And so with private liberal arts colleges and other colleges in the US as well, there's something that they have called 100% need met, which basically means that once a college accepts you, they are required to meet 100% of your demonstrated financial need. And so this is why it's sometimes so hard for international students with high financial aid to be able to get those acceptance letters, because they do take into account your financial need when accepting you. So it's not really a decision that they made separate from your application, except for certain colleges that have a policy called being need blind. There's, I think, 5 or 6 of them in the US that are specifically need blind for international students, which does mean that they won't take into account your financial need when accepting you. However, again, those are usually very, very hard to get into colleges with really small acceptance rates and so on. So obviously, I did not try to limit myself to those colleges, and I really tried to look beyond. And one thing about colleges is that it's really about finding your perfect fit. And I know to people that go to school in Europe and even Moldova, that might be a foreign concept, because usually you just look at the programs that they have offered, the bachelor's degrees, their master's programs, and so on. But with US colleges, they really all have their own personalities. A lot of them are very similar to a certain degree, but there's also very unique things about them. And so when you look at their student life, when you look at the programs that they offer, when you look at their mission and philosophy, as an institution, these are all things that go into making up a college's personality, as I like to say. And finding that, college that really resonates, you're going to find more than one college that resonates with you, that's for sure. But finding those colleges that you'd be a perfect fit for and they would be a perfect fit for you as well is really, I think, one of the keys in this process.
Perfectly said. I think I cannot add anything else here, because we are always insisting on the best fit university. And even that, this is a term that for students can be strange. That is a term that you should rely on during your research process. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so the next question, which is also a very important one, because I think all the students would want to know since when they should start preparing for their application. So maybe if you can just say to us your application timeline. When did you start it? When you prepared your documents? Maybe if you prepared your standardized test, when you started with that, or if not, when did you take your TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo? What exactly did you took for your university application?
Yeah, this is definitely one of the questions that I get asked the most. And again, I'm going to give the answer that everybody gives. The sooner you start, the better off you are. And this is very true because, again, there's so many pieces when it comes to applying to college in the US. And it's not just you doing the actual, applications and writing the essays and taking the tests, but it's also getting familiarized with the system that you're going to apply through. So I think that's a very, very big factor in this process. And so me personally, so when I found out about US colleges, I was in 10th grade, I think. And that's kind of when I decided I really resonated the kind of colleges that they have with the liberal arts curriculum and so on. And I was like, I need to go there. And so I started taking small steps, starting with 10th grade, but most of them were focused on building my profile. So I applied to college in the US with a very extracurriculars focused profile. There's students from Moldova, for example, apply with a very strong Olympiad profile, meaning that they go to Olympiads and study a lot of STEM subjects and so on. My profile was very geared, towards extracurriculars, towards activism, humanities, and so on. And so I think I was trying to find one thing that would help me stand out when I would apply to college. And because volunteering was one of my passions at that time, I decided that was going to be the outlet I was going to use to pursue this. But when it comes to actually starting writing the essays and getting, a bit more into the standardized tests and so on, I think I started in the summer. Well, technically, when it comes to essay writing, I started in the summer before my 12th grade. So the summer in between 11th and 12th grade, that's when I kind of started writing my essays, both my Common App essay, my supplementals, and so on. My extracurriculars and the other parts of my profile were done either before or during that time as well. So for example, I ended up taking the SAT and TOEFL, I think quite late in the process. I think also during the summer between my 11th and 12th grade. I ended up applying SAT optional, and so the only test that I did need was TOEFL. And because I was going to a bilingual high school, that wasn't really one of the things that I had to worry about or really even study for. And so that wasn't really something that I had to, personally deal with. But yeah, I would say the summer before your 12th grade is one of the busiest summers if you are applying to US colleges, and everything that comes after that just gets busier and busier.
For sure. And what deadline did you use? Did you apply early action, or was that the regular admission? How was that in your case?
So I ended up applying both early action and regular decision. I think because my college list was made up of 20 colleges, which is the maximum number of colleges you can apply through the Common App. I made sure to kind of divide my applications. So I had, I think, half of them during the early round and half of them during the regular round. So I was a bit less overwhelmed. But I used both the deadlines. So I was still applying to colleges as I was getting decisions in from the early round. So it was very chaotic, but yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. And when you applied early action, that's when you also, the decision that you've got basically from Tufts was from your early action, right?
So technically, it was early decision, but it was early decision too. I feel like decision is something that people don't really know about. It's less talked about for sure, because it has the exact same deadline as the regular round, but it's still a binding decision plan, which means that if they accept you, you have to go. And so yeah, I did apply with the regular decision dates, but it was still considered the early decision round.
Awesome. Okay, so here then would come the next question. So it's going to be about the financial aid, and I think you already specified that, but maybe if you can just give us more details on how you made the research specifically about for the financial aid, because not a lot of people would know that they would have to apply both for financial aid and for the university. So you applied it through CSS profile, or how was the process when you applied for that? And yes, if you can just go through the steps that you followed when you did that.
Yeah, so again, when you start applying to colleges, I think one of the most important things that you can do is forget everything that you know about applying to colleges and relearn everything from the ground up. And this is something that I learned to practice as I went through this process for sure. And so one of the first things that I started learning about when it comes to financial aid options was the different financial aid policies, and specifically for international students, because there's a lot of colleges that do, for example, they're either need blind or they say that they're going to give you all the money that you need, meaning that they have a 100% demonstrated need, but it's only for US citizens. So this is definitely like a very, very tiny detail that you do have to check, because I remember finding lots of colleges that I was interested in and then finding out that their financial policies were only, for US citizens. So when it comes to financial aid, there's again different policies. I mentioned need blind, the need blind policy, 100% need met, and these are all financial aid options that usually are classified in the need-based category, which means that they're not awarded to you based on merit, but based on your family's financial income. And so this is something that the college, for example, decides when it comes to your 100% demonstrated need. So the way that the college usually understands this need is after you've sent them certain documents regarding your parents' financial situation, the things that you own, the things that are in your name, in their name, etc., etc. Those are the kinds of things that help them decide how much money they think you need to attend their college. So this is very important, because when you will be completing this process, which is called the CSS profile, it's one of the most tedious things I've had to deal with. I think what's genuinely one of the hardest out of applying to colleges in the US. And it's basically, there's so many questions, and because it's usually built for US citizens, there's a lot of questions that really don't apply to us. So learning what they mean and then learning that they don't apply to you and then figuring out how to respond to them can be quite challenging. But again, it is the one process that allows you to get financial aid, through the CSS profile essentially. And then besides need-based opportunities, one of the things that I was looking into was merit-based aid. And again, I think US colleges are known for awarding a lot more need-based aid rather than merit-based. But then again, that depends a lot on the college that you're looking at. And so I was looking at different scholarships that were like, there's this program called Richmond Scholars. There's different scholars programs with different universities in the US that basically, again, it's a full scholarship. They cover everything. Some of them even cover flights and like summer stipends and all of that. So they're very, very comprehensive in this sense. But again, there's very few of them, and of course, they're very, very competitive.
For sure. So I think from here will come my next question. So you already explained how you started the preparation process and how much time it took you to prepare for the application. And one of the things that it's interesting, I think, to know now is what, in your opinion, was the thing that made them choose you and give you this financial aid and accept you, and yes, that convinced them, that convinced the admission commission, because the people would ask, how is the ETL student for them? What would they expect? How I should be? What I should do? And they would think that they need to have the highest GPA, or they would have to, fulfill all the requirements, or to take SAT, or to take all the tests in the world, the best score. What was it in your case?
So I can only speak from my understanding of the process and my experience. Again, I feel like maybe the admissions officers from Tufts might disagree or agree with me, but the way that I sensed it is that the strongest part of my profile were my extracurriculars list and I think my Common App essay. So everything that has to do with my identity, the communities I was part of, and the work that I've done in those communities was really, I think, the highlight of my application, because I talked about this in all of my essays. My recommendations letter mentioned things, along these lines and so on. And so I think that was the one thing that really made me stand out. But then again, for different students, this can look very differently. And for a lot of them, there might not be the just one thing that makes them stand out. It might be multiple things. And one of the mistakes I feel like that I see a lot of people making when thinking about the US college application process is like, what do they want me to look like? Who do they want me to be? And then they try to essentially put out a persona that's not theirs. And I think that's one of the worst things you can do. Not just because, first of all, that's not who you are, and it's obviously not going to reflect, you know, of anything or of anyone in an important matter. But second of all, even if you do get in, you might get into a college that's not a good fit for you because you put out there a persona that's not yours. So I think being honest is really not just in your benefit, but in everyone's benefit, really. And it's also important because if the college application process in the US is really about who you are, and they do try to look at your life from all points of view. Again, from that's why you have so many opportunities to talk about your life in your essays. That's why, you know, there's so many components to this process, and it's not just your CV and your grades. There's so much more to it. So I think using those spaces to really present yourself, you know, and present who you are, present where you come from, and so on. I feel like those are really, really important things that are going to help you rather than, you know, not.
For sure, yes. It's about your personality, and this is the thing that would stand out in your personal essay and through all the application as a whole. Okay, good. After that, let's move then to the part when you arrived at the campus, and what was the biggest academic adjustment that you faced when you moved to those Tufts, and how different is that from the high school experience that you had in Moldova? Because I know in Moldova you also have studied in a lyceum that was also very competitive, and it's very interesting to know the difference. If you can just share that with us also.
Yes, so I had a very peculiar academic adjustment experience. And the reason for that is because in my first semester of college, I decided to go study abroad in Peru with a program that my college offered called the Civic Semester in Peru. And so I only got to campus, stayed there for 2 weeks, and then I was essentially flown out to Peru with the cohort of people from my college. Again, this is genuinely not a very common college experience. It was something that I chose, that I applied to, I had to get into, and so on. And it's definitely not the standard way of starting the college. However, I will say that this was one of the reasons why I chose Tufts, because of the kinds of programs that they offer and because of the study abroad experiences. They're very study abroad centered, I would say, and very globally minded. And so that was adjusting to US. I didn't really even have time to adjust to US life because I was only there for 2 weeks and then I had to go to Peru. However, I will say that Peru felt a lot more like home than US did. So it somehow made things easier, I think. And then when I eventually ended up going to college in my second semester in my first year, I was able to I already had like a very strong group of friends that I developed when I was in Peru. I feel like having friends, you know, and making connections, that's one thing that a lot of students struggle with. So that was something that, you know, I already had right off the bat, which again, I'm insanely grateful for. And then as I started moving, you know, navigating the classes, because again, it was very different than studying abroad in Peru, of course. I also was very knowledgeable before I went to the US, again, because this was a very huge dream of mine. I did know a lot of the things and I had made the right expectations before going in there. And so that kind of helped me, you know, navigate the system much, much easier. People often ask me about culture shocks, and I sometimes don't know what to tell them other than the fact that things are very expensive. So yeah, it's really not a common experience. And again, everyone deals with this adjustment very differently. I feel like the language aspect of things is also very, very huge. Like not speaking Romanian for like days and weeks and sometimes even months. In the beginning, it can be very scary. But then again, you can adapt to it very quickly. And then in terms of the academic side of things, I feel like I was quite aware of the way that the course registration and classes worked in the US. Again, was the reason I was going there for. And I was very excited about the flexibility that comes with that. Being able to choose any class that you want at any, in any semester essentially was something that I wasn't at all aware of or like had previous experience with, because I had just come from the Moldovan educational system where like your entire 12 years of schooling, it has been chosen for you from day one. And so I think that was one of the biggest things that I was looking forward to and was exciting about.
And that's a great experience. Yeah, definitely you were very lucky. I think for those who would be nearby their parents until their 12th grade, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but definitely they will make it. And I think one of the last questions that I will address, and we can move to the ones that people gave us before that, is what is the advice you would give people which would start now with their application process? What do you think it would be very important for them to know if they decided to apply for studies in the US?
I think one of the most underrated things that people don't talk about is to learn how the system works before you actually start applying. Again, this isn't, I've known people who have applied without knowing much about the US college application process, but then again, I do think it's one of the things that can set you up for success. And what I mean by that is essentially don't just look at the requirements that you need, like don't just look at the fact that you need this essay and this standardized test, but look more at the fact that like what exactly and how exactly are admissions officers looking at your application. And again, because this is a global application process and people from all over the world are applying, there's so many resources, free resources out there, including EducationUSA, that allow you to understand this so much better. And because once you understand it, it allows you to move and to talk about things the right way and in a way that's also authentic and reflective of your own self. So I would just say doing as much research as you can on like the college application process and the way that the admissions officers look at it is really something that, at least for me, it did set me up for success.
Awesome advice. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move to the part, I think, to the interesting part especially for those students who have submitted their questions in advance when they have registered for our event. And one of the first question is, what things do Tufts University usually seek from the applicants?
Okay, so Tufts isn't very different from all of the other colleges, liberal arts colleges in the US. So there's the Common App essay, which everyone requires. It's a 650-word essay, everyone requires it. And then I think currently Tufts requires 2 supplemental essays. And again, they have different prompts, and I think they do also change each year, more or less. Some of them do, some of them don't, depending on the admissions office, really. I think besides that, you have the SATs, you have TOEFL for international students. I'm not sure if Tufts is currently SAT optional or not. This is something you would have to check. But other than that, you have your extracurriculars list. Again, these are all things that you would already have completed once you do your Common App profile. So again, once you add the Tufts to your Common App list, I think the only thing that stands out or like that you'd have to do additionally would be the those 2 supplemental essays, which last time I checked, they were quite short. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and the next question. What aspects about US University led you to the idea that it is the best place to study international relations?
Okay, this is a very good one. So I mentioned in the beginning that the reason why I chose US was because I was very unsure as to what I wanted to do. And so international relations at that point in time was nowhere on my radar in any capacity. The reason why I'm studying international relations is because I am at Tufts, and it's a very, very popular and strong program offered at Tufts. Almost half of the students there major in international relations, which again is really cool because you have this cohort or very globally minded people that know lots about politics and history, which doesn't always happen in these global spaces. I've had people ask me about Transnistria, which again, if you know about Transnistria, this speaks volumes to your knowledge, I think. But yeah, and so I was thinking of studying politics, and then the major that I ended up applying with was women's and gender studies. So it was international relations was nowhere on my list, and I think there's definitely cons and pros as to why you'd want to study international relations in the US. But again, I feel like that's a very different discussion.
For sure, yes. Okay, the next question, which was addressed by another student, what challenges did Nica face when adjusting to life in the US? And how did she overcome them? Were there
That's
challenges?
That's a very good question. So again, when I finished high school in Moldova, I was very, very excited to experience something new, to kind of get outside of my comfort zone. So I was purposefully looking for challenges to overcome, I think. And this is why I chose to go to college so far away. And again, I was very, passionate about adventure and still am. And that was a great outlet for me at that point in time. And I think when it comes to like challenges that I had to face once I was in the US, I think navigating the differences in culture is something that you hear a lot of students mention. I think you can overcome that very quickly if you just find the international people at your school. This is something that I did. And they don't have to be from your part of the world. They can be from a different part of the world, but there's something very unique and unifying about people who are all from different places, and they are in this one very US centered university. So I think that's something that helps, finding your people and finding your community. But I think the most important thing for me was my college. I think the way that I found Tufts and the way that Tufts found me, again, is really the best representation of a perfect fit, in my opinion, because it is because of the way that Tufts functions and because of the way that Tufts, organizes its programs and, cares about its students and so on, that really allowed me to fit in so quickly and just allowed me to participate in, the campus life and everything that comes with that.
Great. Okay, the next question. And I think you answered this one, but maybe if you want to add something else here, what steps did you take to make your application truly memorable to the admission committee? You already said about your essay, but maybe there are some other things you think that stand out.
I think, again, the extracurriculars list and the way that you write that extracurricular list is, I think, really important because you only have 150 characters. Oh, sorry, 150 characters for each description of, for example, an activity that you did. And I spent like years on each of the positions or like roles that I've had in the past. So 150 characters, not even words, was something I had to get used to. But again, because I knew this is how I had to do it, and because I had previous knowledge of it, I feel like that helped me, navigate this a lot smoother. And other than that, I think, again, I try to present my most authentic self in the best way possible, and I really try to make use of all of the things that the college application has to make myself stand out. So I didn't really view the essays and the recommendations and everything that comes with that as a chore, but more as an outlet for me to, talk a bit more about myself, present a different side of me that they have not seen, talk about my identity in a different way, in a different light, and so on. So I really tried to push all parts of my identity onto the college application process.
And as you already mentioned, a lot of times about the extracurricular activities, many students would ask us as Education USA advisor, how many extracurricular activities I should list in my Common App, and in how many I should enroll in, because there are so many volunteering activities. I don't really know what I should choose from, and some of them would just think about their extracurricular activities when they would be in, in their last year or in their 11th grade, and they would be like, I don't have so much time to do something extra. So what you can advise here, and how was that in your case? How many activities did you list it? Because I imagine specifying that in 150 characters, it was very difficult, as you already mentioned. But knowing how many of them you have specified, maybe it will give people a better understanding. And we always say them that it's not the quantity, but the quality of the activities that you should focus on. But maybe you can also give some other advice here.
Yeah, definitely. So there was no way I could have listed all of the extracurricular activities that I was involved in, because there is a limit there of 10 extracurriculars. I think you always have the option of uploading your CV or resume on the Common App if you do wanna let them know everything else that you did. But for me, it was really a matter of choosing from all of the things that I did over the years, which ones were the most representative of my current self, and which ones helped me, which ones also like I left the most impact through. So I think when I was looking at, the first thing that I did was put down everything that I could possibly think that I've done in the past years. It was usually the high school years, so like what, 10th and 11th grade and even 12th. And so choosing from that list can sometimes prove very challenging, but then again, there's different factors that go into the choosing process, and as you mentioned, it is really quality over quantity. And again, I know people who have did not complete the entire 10 extracurriculars and they were fine and they still got in. But I do think because of the different ways that the extracurricular list is structured, for example, there's even an option on there to list down the chores that you do around the house if they take up a significant amount of time out of your life. So I think the extracurriculars list is really just you telling them how you spend your free time, no matter what that might look like. And that might be in a productive way, that might be in a fun way, that this can look very differently, of course. And again, mine was very focused on community service, but yours can be focused on music. It can be focused on doing competitions, getting involved with dance and so on. So again, it can look very differently, and it does look very differently for everyone.
Even taking care of your siblings, that's also an extracurricular activity I wanted to say, because people were like, wow, is that an extracurricular activity? But that's how you spend your free time. You don't really have a lot of free time because you need to take care about your siblings. So yeah, that can be also an extracurricular activity. Okay, so we are done with that list. We have one more question in our chat box. I have some questions regarding need-based aid. Are international students eligible for it, and the university decide to give it to you after admission, right? Thank you. How was that in your case?
Yeah, so need-based aid is available for international students, but again, this you do have to check very, very, very carefully regarding the policies, because they don't always state that it's for U.S. citizens only, so you really have to dig deeper and find out if they also apply for international students. The only thing that doesn't apply for international students is federal aid. I have not heard any instance in which this would apply to international students unless maybe you have a green card. And then you do receive your financial aid after admission. There's very few colleges, I think, that award you the financial aid right in the exact same day with your admission. For example, for me, Tufts, I think they accepted me, and then I think 1 or 2 weeks later they sent me my financial aid package. So again, you do have that 2 week period of time where you're kind of waiting and stressing over the fact that hopefully they will give you enough money to attend. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes. Awesome. I think you answered that so good. Okay, so I think we are done with the list for all the questions that we had in advance and we had also prepared for you. Thank you so much, Nica. I really hope that your experience would be valuable and interesting for those who want to apply for studies in the US. I know that you said before we even started the webinar that those who are interested and are seeking for your advice or help, they can reach you. So we will submit afterwards your email or your contact details, or maybe your LinkedIn if you want to share that also. So yes, for all those who are in their preparation process and research process, you have here an like-minded individual that maybe can assist you during the process with some advice. Not consultations, because that is taking a lot of time, and that you can get, by the way, from free from Education USA. So yes. Great. So I think we are done with that. Thank you so much once again. I wish you good luck, and and I wish that you stay so enthusiastic and so motivated. Always. I hope that we'll have another webinar when you would start with your master or with your PhD. So yes, you would share with us how that experience went.
Thank you so much, Alina, for having me, and thank you everyone who's been here or who's gonna watch this, the recording. And again, you're always free to contact me if you have questions. I'm always happy to talk about my experience. And yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. And thank you guys for being so active with us. Stay tuned for our events for June. We will soon submit them on the website. We will have a lot of interesting webinars about standardized tests and about English proficiency tests. That is a great period to start preparing. So yes, stay interested, tune, follow us, and subscribe to our events. Thank you once again, and I wish you a great, great evening.
Bye bye, everyone.